Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Coming up to a new month, August, and I'm so glad I have finally completely unwound from all the craziness that went on this past spring. So I started a job at a community college, but I had just left a toxic workplace, and so I wanted a little bit of a buffer, if you will. And so I decided to, well, quite a few things. I decided to take on some gig work as a tutor, and also I really ramped up my art project. And we got an art show in late August, and I really want to go to this art festival that is in downtown Phoenix every month, but the logistics of it I have not figured out. So you can set up a booth there, and I don't know how these people get their stuff in there because the nearest reasonable parking is like a mile away. It's hard enough for me to just walk there without anything in this kind of weather, right? In the wintertime, I might be able to make that walk. It's hard enough for me to do that just to visit the festival. And then you add half a ton, 1 ton of bismuth. I don't know how people do that. I will continue to figure that out because I really like that festival. I think I could make a killing every time I did one of those. Okay, so my art projects, tutoring gigs that I find, and also at the community college, they're working on a computer science department. And I wanted to get first dibs at any positions in there. So I was working on this computer science publication for a graph theory problem. And it's also a game as well, AI for the game. So basically combining neural networks with graph theory, it was the main theme of that publication. And during that time, I also unfortunately contracted COVID-19 for my fourth time. I call it COVID 76. And this one was different in that I ended up with a long COVID, which I hopefully have completely recovered from. I still get symptoms from intermittently for some reason. Hopefully, it's all gone now. And also, just as I was starting to recover from the long COVID, I developed a huge sore in my mouth. I don't know if we can still see it. I don't feel it anymore, but I can still kind of see where it was. I always get the sore in the same place in my mouth. It comes and goes. I would say a couple times a year for some reason. I'll have to see what maybe some habits that I'm having. I'm biting my mouth for some reason, perhaps when I'm asleep. I don't know. I'll have to do some more digging into that. But just as I was recovering from the long COVID, I developed a mouth sore. Now, normally a mouth sore would be no big deal. If this had happened 3 years ago when we were working from home, I probably wouldn't even have brought it up, right? Or even thought about it. But unfortunately, my job kind of requires me to use my mouth, right? And what's really frustrating is that it's one thing to be in pain when you're talking, but it's another. The pain kind of constricts how you can interact with other people, right? So I'm talking to my boss, I'm talking to my students, and without thinking about it, you kind of mentally want to take shortcuts to what you want to say. And that often does not go in your favor. I'll let you think about why it might not go in your favor, but take me on my word that when your mouth is sore and you can't wait to finish a sentence, usually what you say comes out wrong. Just take me on my word for that. And so as I was dealing with the long COVID, the COVID itself, mouth sores, and all the late night bismuth pouring, and all the craziness, right? I started to wish that I had a partner in life. When I was doing these late night bismuth, if somebody could cook for me or clean for me, or when I was dealing with the mouth sore, right? Or and then I had to, after dealing with I unfortunately at the community college where I'm teaching, a lot of the students have wackiness, and so I end up staying late with them, and then I got to go home and realize that my dinner's not ready, uh, or sometimes when things got too crazy, it almost feels like a tax that I don't have a partner cooking for me, because then I have to go out to eat and spend a fortune when I have to stay late and then not to mention, a lot of times the reason I'm staying late at the office is that people assume that I have nobody to take care of. What they forget is that I also have nobody to take care of me, right? It works both ways, really. And then I decided to take a break from my art project because things got way out of hand, and just trust that I'm not going to have toxicity at work. Part of the problem with toxicity at work is that a lot of times it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You think you're going to have toxicity, and so you create this backup plan, and then you get all burnt out, and then you really do have toxicity at work. I've come to realize that some of it could be self-fulfilling as well. But I just needed to have faith in that. But I really love my bismuth art. What I'll probably do, and I'm kind of forced to do it anyway because of my living situation, is to have once a while have a sprint of making a lot of art and then take some time away from it. I'm kind of forced to do that anyway because I live with roommates. So if they go away on vacation or they're away for some time, that's a perfect time for me to do a binge session of my bismuth art, right? I'm kind of forced to do that anyway, and it kind of works to my benefit in terms of the mental aspects of it. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's how the burnout situation of recent months played out. I didn't trust that I had a good working condition, and I actually made it a lot worse than it had to be. And also, I need to trust the people that I'm interacting with in order to facilitate finding that life partner. And sometimes that little bit of distrust kind of multiplies on itself, right? Also, I read a story that kind of saddened me. So I often wonder what will happen to my bismuth art hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now, after I'm long gone. And I kind of got my answer when I was reading a little bit about a story about some shipwrecks. So in our nuclear research, we need a lot of lead to shield things from radiation, right? The problem is that naturally occurring lead that you dig out of the ground contains a few rare isotopes of lead that decay, right? So what they need to do is to take lead from ancient shipwrecks to use in their nuclear research. Oh, it's lead-210, which has a half-life of 22.3 years. And unfortunately, if you were to use that to shield your nuclear research, it interferes, right? So what they do is they take lead from ancient shipwrecks, which has long since decayed. And what's really nice is that lead-210 eventually becomes lead-206, and they use that for their nuclear research. That's just kind of sad. I would hate to see my bismuth eventually go in that way, right? It makes you wonder, why don't they just use some other metal for shielding their radiation, right? Especially either thallium or gold, right? Thallium has two stable isotopes, or more or less stable. We don't know, right? And the other isotopes all have pretty short half-lives, and they don't really occur naturally. And gold has this just one isotope, right, which is presumably stable. And you would think if you're going to do nuclear research, you could afford the gold, right? Instead of stealing from our ancient shipwrecks. I don't know if bismuth would work for that because it does have a very long half-life. You have to wonder how they measured the half-life of bismuth 209, though, right? Because it's hard enough to get very pure stuff. And then not to mention, you got to isolate it from the other isotopes of bismuth, right? Especially 210, which has a half-life of 5 days. So you need to refine your bismuth, wait a few of those 5-day half-lives, which is not that long, but then you have to re-refine it to get polonium-210 and all the other decay products out of it. And then you'd have to measure the. I don't know how they did it. I have doubts that any of that is accurate, but we definitely shouldn't be stealing from the shipwrecks. All right, I'm going to close out. And so my main goals next month are to have more faith in the connections that I have at work and in my social network, and also to figure out how to have a life outside of work despite having faith in the work environment, and also to potentially find that very elusive, non-romantic life partner so that we can help each other when we have little challenges, little moments like the mouth sores, the long COVIDs, and stabilize each other's lives, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.